Whenever y'all are ready. Can I stand down here?
Yes.
Can you hear me? All right.
Okay, I'm going to
loud.
give a little bit of an introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Mallory Neal, and I'm the Director of Career Development here at Wesleyan College. I am pleased today to be able to present to you a Wesleyan alumna who is going to be talking a little bit about her insights into success and what that means. So Colonel Joy M. Kaczor graduated from Wesleyan College in 1996 with a degree in mathematics. Currently, she serves as commander of the White House Communications Agency, leading over 1,200 joint forces responsible for providing global information services to the President, Vice President, Executive Office of the President, and the United States Secret Service, ensuring the ability of the White House to communicate anywhere, anytime, and by any means to anyone. Today, she is going to be speaking on the topic of success and how it's all about the journey, not the destination. So I want to join me in welcoming Colonel Kaczor.
Thank you, Mallory, and thank you, Dr. Fowler, for spending time with me today and offering me the opportunity to do this, and thank you all for coming. I just wanted to figure out how can I reach out and share some of my thoughts and experience with students. It's been a challenging time, I think, for all of us over the past year of being in the COVID. So I just put some thoughts together, kind of my philosophy on success, and threw in some pictures too, because visuals I think are always great to kind of trigger some things. And then we can have time afterwards if there's any Q&A to share. So, do I have a clicker? I need a clicker.
We have one.
I have a clicker. Thank you. I just realized I'm supposed to be in charge of the clicker. Perfect. Thank you. I'm assuming, okay. So as Mallory said, I'm at the White House Communications Agency. I am a colonel in the Air Force, so I've been doing this for a while. So, what I'd share is this idea of success being a journey is not mine. This smart man right here, brilliant educator, came up with this idea, a long time, over 100 years ago, so, a long time ago. And it really is about appreciating the obstacles that you overcome on your path. So I think oftentimes, and when I talk to my young officers, we get so focused on a rank or position and we forget about why we're trying to achieve that goal in the first place. So what I'd say is you get to define your own success. Success is what you make it. So while you might have people that you look up to, what I'd say, don't constantly compare yourself, all right, to find your success. So this is me and my beautiful family just recently. You can see the date there. Super cool to be able to lead this amazing organization. But I would not define me being in this position as success. It was the many years to get there. And quite frankly, I define more success of my beautiful family. I have two amazing kiddos. Our son's 16. Our daughter's 11. They keep me on my toes. For those of you who have kids, you know what I'm talking about, or if you have younger siblings, right? They're keeping us busy. And my amazing husband, who I met while I was here at Wesleyan, and actually next month will be 27 years. I was telling Mallory, we were married at the Fountain, April 23rd, 1994. So if he's watching, I remember the date. And we've been together now almost 29 years. So holy smokes, that's kind of success. And I will tell you, not all of those have been happy. I'm sure you both can appreciate what I'm talking about. Marriage is not easy. Life is not easy. Success is hard, right? There's a lot that went into getting me to this point. And so that's young Second Lieutenant Kaczor, exactly 22 years to the date before the day I took command of this amazing organization. And that's my mama with me too, and I'll talk about her a little more at the end. But my husband, as you can see, was in the military as well. He was here at Robbins. That's how we met, back when people used to meet at bars and not online. And he's the one that actually inspired me, if you will, to join the Air Force. At the time, I thought I wanted to maybe be a doctor in the military, but that wasn't looking like an option, especially we were probably going overseas. But what I saw is there was this group of people that were serving our country, and mind you, this was Desert Storm, right, just after Desert Storm, but he's still flying and he's gone a lot, right? We met in '92, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I saw that he had some amazing leaders and he had some not so good leaders. And so I had a goal to be a commander in the military, to be able to take care of people. That was my goal and that was my why, right? But it took a long time to get there. You see some of the numbers, so math major, right? Got to throw my numbers up there. There was a lot that went into that. There was a lot of struggle and obstacles and failures, quite frankly. It wasn't easy. Yes, I'm a female in a male-dominated military and in a career field that is male-dominated. And to this day, I'm often still the only female in the room. Fortunately, I'm usually the highest-ranking female in the room, which is kind of cool. But it wasn't easy, right? I had to be persistent. I had to be resilient. I had to put a lot of effort. I had to work really hard to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I will tell you along the way, I didn't always appreciate the journey. I focused on that next goal. What do I need to do next? What do they need me to do? And get to it, achieve that, right? Conquer the hill, move on, right? That's how the military trains us, and quite frankly, that's how my brain is kind of structured. Math, solve the problem, move to the next problem, right? So I didn't always appreciate the journey, especially as a younger officer. But it took a lot to get there, and when I started to appreciate along the way is that it also took a village to help me get there. So those are the things that I'm going to talk to you about today of, you know, what does your success look like? What does success mean to you? What are your goals? And why do you want to achieve those goals? And what are you going to do with them once you get there? So does anyone want to share one of their goals with me? And I'm looking at the students. Don't be shy. You're not allowed to be shy. It's the beauty of being here at Wesleyan. You don't have to be shy. Don't make me pick on you. Y'all are trying to look away. I'm a military commander. Tell me, thank you. Stand up, be brave. What's one of your goals?
Hello, my name is Allison. I'm a senior here at Wesleyan, and I'm planning on becoming an officer in the Army.
Awesome, Allison. Woohoo, we'll talk after. Thank you for sharing. Why do you want to be an officer in the Army, Allison?
My entire family served in the military, going all the way back to the American Revolution, and I want to change in the international relations.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So, yes. Thank you for sharing, Allison. So we're going to talk about that. Don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. So you have a goal. That's not going to, you're not going to accomplish that overnight. There's a lot of things you have to do to get there, right? And so you got to break down those goals. What are those sub things that you need to do to achieve that goal? And then more importantly, what are you learning along the way? And then what are you going to do once you achieve that goal? Don't just, okay, done, move on to the next thing. What are you going to do with it? What's your why? Has everybody read Simon Sinek's book, or at least heard of it? Start with Why. I love that book. He's got another one out there. I've now ordered Infinite Game. Lots of great things out there. So think about your goals. So I want to talk to you about a goal that I had as a young 24-year-old as we were stationed in Okinawa. I had just been accepted to officer training school. I finally had decided to join the military. And, we're in Okinawa, Japan. And I told my husband, we're in Japan. When else will we get to go to Tokyo and hike Mount Fuji? So let's do this. So we set that goal. We did not do a good job of preparing for all the things that we were going to need to do to achieve the goal, right? And this is often when we fail when we're young, because when we're young, we're like, oh, we can do this. I got a goal, I'm going to achieve it. But do you think through all the things that you have to do to prepare yourself to achieve that goal? So you see some stats up there. It was a long hike. And we showed up in Tokyo the night before. We took a military flight because, we were poor, didn't have money. We had to take a commercial. We couldn't afford commercial airline tickets. So we couldn't take a lot with us. And, in Tokyo, there wasn't, this is 98. They didn't have the corner store Walgreens that were 24/7 like we have. So we didn't have a way to get snacks to prepare for this hike. We fortunately had some bottled water I think we were able to get from the hotel. So we had our leftovers that we had from eating at the Hard Rock Cafe in Tokyo the night before. Yes, that's what we had to hike this mountain. We were not prepared, but we were excited. We were going to achieve this goal. Now, mind you, I'm a Girl Scout too. I should have been better prepared. But I was not. And we went on trudging up the mountain. Has anybody hiked Mount Fuji, by the way? Anybody hiked any mountains? Okay, it's not easy, right? You should be prepared, we at least had the right shoes, and we wound up buying the really cool walking stick. But we didn't have a flashlight or anything like that, and that'll become important in a minute. And obviously we didn't have the right amount of food because it's an 11-mile hike. It took us about 6 hours to get to the top, and we started at the break of dawn. So as we're going through this hike, now mind you, it's volcanic ash. That means we're taking 5 steps up and sliding 2. That's how that's working. We're in the middle of the clouds, so you can't see anything. You're just trying to stay on path, and you're following whoever's in front of you. And we kept passing this monk, and he would pass us, and we're like, how does this keep happening? That, like, we'll pass him, and then he'll pass us, and we can figure this out. But he finally stops and says to us, "Isn't it a beautiful view?" And my husband and I are looking at each other because we're just trying to get up this mountain, right? We're gonna get to the top, which at this point we can't even see. And we finally found a place to stop, and we looked around, and we're like, holy smokes, it's gorgeous. I wish I could have found the pictures. We did buy a little disposable camera because this is pre-digital age. And so I do have photos in an album somewhere in a box, I'm sure, that's packed away, of the beautiful view. Absolutely just changed my life in that moment. I finally stopped, took a breath, and looked at the view. I was so focused at the top of the mountain, which, oh, by the way, I couldn't even see, that I couldn't appreciate what I was accomplishing along the way. So that to me is very much what success is, right? What are you already accomplishing? What are you learning? We had to figure out how to maneuver around the boulders and the rocks and everything else. But thinking about that and appreciating that it's about the journey. And oh, by the way, who else is on that journey with you? So I share that with you to kind of start this whole discussion of there's a lot of things involved in this journey of life, including failure. And I'm Air Force, so I got to give my obligatory airplane photos. But failure is not a bad thing, right? It's quite the exact opposite if you apply it correctly. Failure is success if applied properly. So I think about it very simply. We probably can't remember when we started crawling as babies, but we've all seen babies crawl, and we've seen them take their first steps. We can all agree to that? Okay, do they usually fall the first time? And what do they do immediately? Get back up and try again, don't they? And they keep doing it. And if they're like my kids, then they start climbing on stuff and jumping off said stuff, right? So they just like take it to the next level. So my point is, you cannot create greatness without falling a few times, right? It's about overcoming that and learning from that, right? And, 90 years later, creating some awesomeness like this. So think about what that looks like in your life. Don't focus on the failure. Don't focus on the mistake. Don't focus on the challenge. What are you learning from it? How did it make you stronger? Who helped you get there? Who's helping you? Again, I didn't appreciate that when I was in my 20s and 30s. And so I appreciate that more now. I wish I would have appreciated that. So this is why I'm sharing it with you. Because it's so much more than, oh my gosh, I made a mistake. Now, I'm not saying don't go back and reflect, but don't focus so much on the mistake. Focus on how you're going to make it better. And how are you sharing that with others? How are you helping others to learn from your mistake, right? That's very much what I do now in my role of mentoring a bunch of wonderful people. So these are just some quotes that I think about when I think about failure. This is perspective. Flip it on its head. Again, I'm not the brilliant one, these people are, right? I like to read. And my favorite is the one at the bottom, because we joke about this in the military. We're really good about documenting lessons learned, but they're not learned if you don't apply them. They're just lessons noted. So I go back to, again, it's not about the mistake. It's about what you learn from it. How did you apply what you learned? How did you move on? How did you get back up, dust yourself off, right? It's having that courage. I'm going to use my wonderful little 11-year-old hockey player to talk about courage, because holy smokes, this kid is courageous. She has been playing soccer since she was about 2.5. Since she can walk, she started playing soccer. That's what happens when you have an older brother, too, who's constantly playing sports. And been playing soccer for years, and finally she's like, I'm done with soccer, Mom. I want to play hockey. We've invested all this time, money, energy, weekends, everything in soccer, and we're going to shift to hockey. And oh, by the way, hockey's not a cheap sport. But okay, sweetie. Now, mind you, she learned to ice skate when she was 5, but barely ever goes ice skating. But she wants to play hockey. She's got a goal. And so we're trying to talk her through what she needs to do to accomplish said goal. So we take her on a couple ice skating lessons, take her out to go ice skating. She's actually pretty good, kind of a natural. Now, I played roller hockey with my husband when we were here back when I was at Wesleyan at one of the local rinks. But I wasn't good enough to play on ice because it was mostly all guys, and I quite frankly wasn't fast enough. But that didn't stop her. She was courageous. She wasn't afraid of failing. She'd fall. She was like, falling's kind of fun, Mom. What a great perspective. She was not afraid. This kid got out there and practiced as much as she could, and then had 2 days of tryouts, 90-minute sessions, and those girls went for 90 minutes. I was almost in tears in just sheer joy of how hard these girls were out there working. If anybody's watched hockey, it's no joke. Like, you're skating hard, you're stopping, you're doing all these things, and she just was, she had a goal. She was going to make that team. And she had tried to do the things to prepare her. And the first day, I'll be honest, she did not look good compared to the other girls, because the other girls that were out there had been playing hockey since they could walk. And she's just now starting, right, as a 10-year-old. But that wasn't going to stop her. And by the second day of tryouts, it was as this whole different child was out there. She had improved so much, and I don't know how that happened. She had improved so much from the day before because she took in all the things that she did wrong and watched the others to make her better the next day, and she made the team. So I share that like, are you smarter than a 5th grader? Like, what can we learn from our kids? They're not afraid, right? Think about the things you did as a kid, the crazy stuff we do as kids, right? Because you're not afraid. Don't be afraid. Have that courage. Because if you don't take the shot, you can't score. It's a motto in our house, but, a bunch of athletes. But it's true in life. I was talking to a group in Dr. Istra's class just a little bit ago. And they're like, how do you know what you wanted to do? Well, I didn't really know. I had to try different things out, right? You have to try. You have to take the shot. So that's her scoring. That was actually her 3rd goal. I missed the first 2 because I was home. Wasn't there when she scored her first 2. But needless to say, proud mama, right, when I got to see her finally score her goal. And thank God for cameras that take really fast pictures. But it's about courage, right? Be courageous. Don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of what happens if you don't try. So success is this journey, right? You got to put effort in. And I focus on the last part there about reevaluation, right? In life, we're different phases, right? I'm in a very different phase of my life than I was when I was here at Wesleyan. And reevaluating what's important to me and what my success and what my journey looks like. And I'm going to share a recent revelation that I had. Usually around the holidays, right, we all think about what are our New Year's resolutions. So this is last year at the Christmas party with the Vice President, amazing opportunity, more so in that my kids got to go and they got to meet the Vice President. They got to hear him speak about how grateful he was for what our organization does to support the White House. So how amazing is that? But I will tell you, the joy in the picture, even though she's smiling, wasn't very happy. Okay, now let's think about where I am. Like, you would think, wow, how can you not be happy, right? I got this awesome man, and the lighting in here, I don't know if you can see the picture very well. I got this awesome man, I'm working at the White House, I'm a colonel in the Air Force, I have a beautiful family. How can I not be happy? Well, I wasn't happy with me. I had neglected myself for so long, working so hard, achieving each of those goals, right? And then moving on to the next thing. And taking care of my family, and taking care of my military team, and doing all these things. And guess who I forgot about? Me. And so I had a lot of injuries that I had gone neglected. I had a lot of medical ailments, and quite frankly, mentally, I was just exhausted. Prior to this job, I had been working a job where I was commuting 48 miles each way every day, working 14 plus hours a day. You start doing the math, sleep became optional. The fact that I somehow didn't get into a fiery car crash driving through Maryland is just amazing. So I had worn myself down. I did not take care of myself. And fortunately, I was fairly resilient. So I got through it. But that's probably not healthy, because there's only one you, right? We are all unique. And if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of others. So I said, okay, I'm going to take control. I can take control now. I'm going to take control of my time. I'm going to take control of what I need, and I'm going to start focusing on me a little. And I started doing that. And fortunately with the COVID, that helped a little because now I wasn't necessarily commuting to work every day. I had a couple days, and I can really focus on me because I tell my team I have 3 expectations for them. Take care of the mission, take care of each other, and take care of yourself. And how can I tell them that if I wasn't doing it? So I needed to set the right example. So I took care of myself. I started getting my doctor's appointments in. I started taking care of things physically and mentally. I started taking time to just read a book, watch a movie I wanted to watch, spend some time with the kids, do those things that were important to me. And, smiles in both pictures, but I will tell you the inner smile is so much bigger on that second one. I was happy with me. And so, on the outside, clearly a little different. Again, I don't know how well you could see the photos with the lighting. I lost 40 pounds in 6 months. But it wasn't about the pounds. It was about how I felt on the inside. So I just share that because oftentimes we see the beauty on the outside and we don't think about what it really takes to make that change and really about the change on the inside. So life is not easy. Life is a journey. You're going to go through some struggles, right? You're going to have some failures. It's not about that. Embrace that. Enjoy the journey. Stop and smell the flowers, right? So how many of you take pictures everywhere you go? Yes? Okay, I know we all do, and we're all posting them on social media, right? But sometimes we're just taking the picture real quick and we move on. Do you stop, take the picture, and enjoy the moment? Because I've failed at that sometimes. Right? Take a quick picture. Actually observe, take it in, appreciate it for what it is. Because I will tell you, I've got here because I have this grit. Has anybody read this book? It's a great book. There's a TED Talk. It's a good book, right? I'm not going to give away all the secrets of the book. But I like this. So I like to say I'm a little gritty. And, I know my kids are a little gritty. I think they have no choice in my house to be a little gritty. And grit, Dr. Duckworth describes it in these 5 characteristics, right? And we've already been talking about some of these things. Oh, I went too far. It built it for me, sorry. Talks about these 5 things, courage, right? We were talking about courage. You have to have courage. You have to be aware, have conscious, be aware of your strengths and weaknesses, right? And there's some weaknesses, actually one of the speakers I heard last week talked about, there's some things, right, if you're on a scale of, 1 to 10, your scale of 2 or 3 is a weakness, don't focus on that weakness. There's no point of wasting your energy. Focus on the thing where your weakness is maybe a 6, right? So know your strengths and weaknesses. You gotta have perseverance. You gotta be willing to work through a problem. You gotta put the effort in. And be resilient so that on the back end of that challenge, you feel stronger. So anyone use the Peloton app or have the Peloton bike? I love the app. I got to work out in my hotel room this morning because I have the app and can just do a workout in the room. And then my trainers talk about how it's the micro tears in your muscles that build that strength. So you gotta have a little bit of tear, right? That's what builds up that resilience and that strength. And we talked about passion, right? Have passion for what you do. Because otherwise, why are you doing it? Right? If you're just moving on to the next goal, why are you doing it? So, who in here has recently been through some type of crisis? I mean, it's COVID, so probably all of us, right? Probably had a loss, maybe even, for some of you younger ladies, a breakup. And how many of you thought, I don't know how I'm going to get through this? I've been there, right? I felt like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, right? But you made it through. You made it through. So now go back and think about what you just went through. Reflect on that for a moment. Think about it with a different perspective. Instead of thinking about the negative, think about how you made it through that. How did you make it through? You may not even know. It may have been like a fog. That's often how it is in a crisis. Think of who was around you, right? Think who helped you get you there. because it's all of those little micro tears that make us stronger. So I like to say my scar tissue is my superpower, right? And I have a lot of scar tissue, like physical, but also mental scar tissue, right? All those things I've been through in my life, I'm not afraid of anything. So as I'm driving here last night and I'm hearing, tornado warnings, I'm like, I'm driving, I'm gonna get myself to Georgia. I was driving from Alabama last night and tornadoes were hitting, they're touching down. But I wasn't afraid. Now, there's some level of fear everyone should have, but I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, I don't mind jumping out of planes and diving with sharks and doing this crazy stuff, race cars and all that fun thing, but because I don't have that fear, I'm willing to try. Now, I do risk assessment, don't get me wrong. I don't want anybody in the Air Force coming after me like Colonel Kaczor's doing crazy stuff. But scar tissue is not a bad thing. It's those micro tears, those experiences that you build on, right? That let you know you can get through the next challenge. So, hiked Mount Fuji. We made it. It wasn't pretty. I hurt the next day. So when we went to go hike Pikes Peak, I was better prepared. We had food and water. And lights, because that's fun when you're hiking down a mountain and it's dark. But I knew I could do it. I totally wasn't afraid. Like that whole experience that someone could have viewed as a bad experience, I viewed it as a good experience, right? I learned from it. I learned from that journey. And so that's my daughter when she was much littler. I love my Wonder Woman, if you can't tell by my mask, and my Wonder Woman bracelet. That's what my bestie and I are showing off. I got to see her last week, actually. She's an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, professor of leadership and development at Air University in Alabama. So I got us matching Wonder Woman bracelets. Just to remind us that we're so much stronger than we know we are. And again, you don't know if you don't try. And I mentioned we don't get there alone. I didn't get through any of this alone. I showed my bestie, my daughter, and all these amazing people in my life and so many more that helped me through all those challenges. So again, when I asked you about that crisis you went through recently, who was by your side? Who did you call when you found out about something? You found out about a death in the family, or a boyfriend broke up with you, or whatever happened. Who did you call? Who did you go to? Who was there? Who do you lean on? So I got my family, obviously. I have my girlfriends on the upper right here from high school, one of whom we lost 4 years ago now to breast cancer. We had to be there for each other. That was hard. You're sure that I get my mammogram every year now, right? And then some of my Air Force sisters on the bottom there, and then you see my Wesleyan sisters, and that's Dr. Yehudi Self-Medlin and Gina Frazier, and they've been at both my last 2 promotions, and I know my sisters had a watch party for the change of command. So we have such a close relationship, right, that we built here at Wesleyan 29 years ago, almost. Right? So those relationships, those people in your lives matter. So who's part of your village? Think about that. Because that's critical. You do not go through life alone. It's a journey. There's people that you meet along the way, and some are bypassers, and that's okay, and you might learn something from them. But there's people that are going to come and go, and there's people that are persistent. But who are your people? So in the military, we call them battle buddies. But no kidding, who's your people? Like when you're having the really bad day, who do you call? That's probably not the same as your mentor. It maybe is. And then who's your champion? Who's cheering for you? That's my mom. And cheerleaders, which are sometimes different than champions. So who are those people in your lives? Who's lifting you up? And I'd say this, who's tearing you down? So we won't get into the social media thing. But who's tearing you down? If they are not helping you bring out the best in you, you don't need them in your life. And I would argue that includes family members. There are family members we no longer speak to because along our journey, they did not help. They tore us down, or they got in the way in very negative ways. So you get to choose who's on this journey with you, who you rely on. Again, you're going to come across people, but these people you get to choose. Now, some of them might choose you. So do you fit this category for someone? If you do, know it and own it. These are important roles. So if you don't have a cheerleader, quote from one of my favorite Peloton trainers, clap for your damn self. Okay? Because we have to do that sometimes, right? In the role I'm in, people aren't always telling me I'm doing a great job. That's not how it works. They just tell me when I'm doing a bad job. But sometimes you need to clap for yourself. Appreciate those little accomplishments. Appreciate that journey along the way. What are you achieving to get there, to achieve your goal? Don't just focus on the goal. What is it you have to do to accomplish it? That is the success. So be proud of that. Take a moment and soak it in. Take a picture, take a selfie, right? Enjoy that journey, because life goes by too fast. I don't know how it's been already. I've graduated 25 years. I came on campus and felt like a student again. Clearly not a student anymore, right? It goes by fast. You need to enjoy it, and enjoy it with the ones you love. So thank you all so much for listening to my little bit of words of wisdom. Again, things that I wish I would have known much earlier in life. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Any questions? No questions. I'm not used to shy groups, by the way. My military folks are not shy. I know you all have questions. Yes, ma'am. I'm loving your boots, actually. Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't stress enough the slide on grit. There was another story I was going to share with you all, right? Because it takes talent and effort, and you're constantly having to put that effort in. And you know this, and I tell this to my kids. It doesn't really sometimes matter how much talent and effort you have if your mind gets in your own way. So much of sports and anything in life is mental. We get in our own way. So with, and our kids are completely opposites on this one, so I have to handle them both differently. But it's not easy, and it's maybe just helping them recognize that right now are you not doing well because you physically aren't doing well? Are you giving your effort? Because that's all I ever ask, give me your best. Or are you mentally getting in your own way? Because that's usually what failure is. It's not the failure. What happens? The failure makes our mind say we can't do it instead of saying I can. So it's more psychological usually than anything, right? And it's helping, and everyone handles this differently. So that's why I said it, because with my daughter, I have to handle her completely differently than our son. It's just helping them kind of make that recognition, do that self-awareness. Am I not doing well because I'm not putting enough effort in? Do I not have the skill, or is my mind getting in the way of my success? And it may be all three of those things. Right? Okay, but where do you work then? Okay, then you got to work on your skills. Okay, start building up the skills, put in that effort. Okay, now I got the effort and skills. Okay, now I'm going to start achieving stuff, and once you start having those little successes and celebrate those little successes, because now you get that mental confidence. Right? That's why the really good athletes are really good, because they have the mental toughness. And it's the same in the military, that's what they do, right? They break us down mentally to build us up, to let us know that we have the mental fortitude to tackle whatever we need to tackle. And athletes, it's the same way. So.
I appreciate you sharing that. I think the hardest part, especially when it's hard to see the future when you're in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And, being part of the military, going through that training, you've got to create this kind of universal foundation
Yeah.
of they were all beginners
Mm-hmm.
right now, and having to kind of revert back to
Yep.
the ground level to go there and build upwards. And I think it's sometimes hard, for the athletes to kind of, well, my player's been, I've got some here. And
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely, right? It's perseverance, working through it. Now, there's a difference between working through pain and working through injury. You don't work through an injury, right? Never work through an injury. I've seen too many athletes do that. I'm sure, Coach, you'd agree. But, is that pain mental anguish? Or is it physical pain? So yeah, you got to work hard, everything in life, especially sports. And that's why, I was talking to Dr. Fell and I were talking about this at lunch, right? We encourage our children to do sports because it teaches you that mental toughness, right? It teaches you teamwork, it teaches you discipline. But you got to have that discipline to work hard, right? And here's the other problem we have, and I think I mentioned it. We tend to compare ourselves to others. Do not compare yourselves to others. Now, if you look at someone and go, oh, I admire that about them, that's a different perspective. Don't say, oh, I'm not as good as so-and-so. Well, you're not so-and-so. You're completely unique creatures, right? So you don't compare, admire. You could admire and then ask, oh, how did you get there? How did you achieve this? What are you doing? So change your perspective on things. We often get very negative. And I say this because I spent way too much of my life on negative things, right? Just the way things were thrown at me. So I think that's the problem often with athletes, right? I see someone who's, oh my God, they're amazing. Well, some of it is genetics. Some of it, they've been doing it longer. Again, I talked to my daughter. She went from being, no kidding, probably the second to worst player on her team, because she was brand new, to being the top 5 in her team of 15 by the end of the season. Right? And trust me, talk about self-doubt. She, the whole time, oh, I'm horrible. I'm not as good as so-and-so. I'm like, sweetie, they've been playing for 6 years. You started last month. Right? Let's put it in perspective. Try harder. Okay, let's get some more ice time. What do we need to do to get more reps in, to get more practice, to get better? Because we always want to compare ourselves to others instead of admiring and saying, hey, can you help me? And so finally it was, talk to your buddy on the field. How did they get really good? What did they do? And so, having to have that conversation with a 10-year-old is probably a little harder than these amazing women in here, but it's a perspective. We always are constantly comparing ourselves, which only breaks us down instead of, again, looking at it from a view of admiration and something to achieve to. Yeah. Thank you. It's a good conversation. Yeah.
So, what do you feel like is the best takeaway from Wesleyan that prepared you to go right into the military procedures?
Yeah. So I was talking with some of the ladies earlier. So I didn't join until maybe about 2 years after I graduated. But quite frankly, I was feeling like I had a voice here. I wasn't afraid to use my voice, right? Because you can't join the military, especially as a female in a male-dominated career field, and not have a voice and be afraid to use your voice. Clearly, I'm not afraid to use my voice. But Wesleyan helped me with that. I never questioned whether or not my voice was heard here, and whether or not I was, part of the family. And so I'd share that is I loved when I first visited campus, and I shared this in my interview this morning, I fell in love with the campus. So I'm from New York and went to high school in Miami. So how does one wind up here in Middle Georgia? I applied to Wellesley actually, and visited the campus. And while it was beautiful, I didn't feel the same feeling that I had when I came here. And so I met a young lady who ended up being my roommate my first year, whose sister was going to be coming here, and she's like, oh, you got to check it out. I don't know if you still do it, maybe not with the COVID, but they had a student weekend, where juniors, I think you can come and visit. And so we did, and I just fell in love with the campus. I felt like it was home. I felt like it was family. I didn't want to really go to a big school with a bunch of guys. And then I joined a profession that's exactly like that. I don't know. But I loved the family atmosphere here and that sisterhood. And again, I still have sisters that I call my sisters from being here almost 29 years later. So, yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's actually funny. My first duty station, I was stationed at the Air Force Academy. I wound up teaching in the math department there. I taught freshman calculus, and I would share this with my cadets because I had all freshmen. I tell them where I went to college, and I said, so I know what it's kind of like being at a single-sex college. I went to a women's college because the Air Force Academy is, like, at the time was like 85% male, and they'd all chuckle, and they're like, wait a second, you went to a women's college? Like, and it would blow their mind. I don't know what they thought we did here. I don't know if they thought we sat and crafted all day. But then I tell them, yeah, I was a math major, and they're like, what? Like, it seriously blew their mind, right? Biases. We could have a different discussion on that one. But it was great to just change their view even of what does it mean to be at a women's college. And they'd ask me why, and I told them, I'm like, I didn't want to deal with worrying about what I looked like when I went to class and worrying about whether I was going to be heard, and just wanted to enjoy my education, right? And then I went and got married, but you know, ma'am. Don't be afraid to have a voice. Don't count, like, be yourself. That's what I'd say. Be yourself. Find your voice. And that's not always easy, because I will tell you that meant oftentimes I felt like I was shouting in the room, which is just, you don't want to do that either. And the other piece is have a mentor, and that mentor doesn't have to be a female, by the way. There's another great book out there, I think it's called Raising Athena, Why Men Should Mentor Women. So, but have a mentor to talk to as well to help you through that. But have a voice, and I would say things have changed, right? Things are so much different now than they were, I feel like, when I was younger. But that doesn't mean there's not challenges, because people just have biases, right? We're all grown up differently. We all have different experiences. That is life. That's reality. So how do you have those conversations then with those young men to help them understand a women's college isn't, we're not sitting around crafting all day and trying to find husbands. That's, even though, again, I got married, so, you know, like, but how do you change that bias, reshape it? So don't be afraid to have a voice and have a mentor, and believe in yourself. And look, sometimes that means faking it. We've all heard it, right? So I don't like saying fake it till you make it. I say fake it till you are it. Right? So again, if you admire something about someone and you don't know how to do that, figure out how to at least fake it. I am not always 100% confident, but I will give the perception that I am, and I will try to exude that, because, right, we say that if you smile on the outside, what happens on the inside? You start to smile on the inside. It's like physiologically, that's how that works. So believe in yourself, but don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to get up to the table and speak. Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Another one. Do you see gender bias still possibly being a thing from women or male to female and female to female, and what do you possibly see being more common?
I'd say it depends on the individuals, because it's amazing actually sometimes when I'm around some of the younger men, their view and perspective is completely different, because they've probably grown up with working mothers, right? They only know that. I mean, I think about my own son. I'm the one that fixes everything in the house. The power tools belong to me. My husband's not allowed to use them. So they're growing up with a different perspective. Their biases are different, right? Because biases are based on your experiences, right? It's human nature. So the younger generation, I see somewhat less of an issue. There's different biases they actually have, and I think it's more around ageism than gender, my experience. They assume certain things because we're of a certain age. But some of the older gentlemen, you know, it's amazing the things that are like, when I tell them I have children, oh, you have children and you're still in the military? Yes, it is 2021. There are women in the military with children, yes. But they didn't grow up that way. So I don't blame them for that. And so, you know, don't necessarily get mad at someone because they have a bias. Let's have a conversation and educate. Because you have folks in the military, so when the craziness erupted last year, when we finally recognized as a country that we still have racial disparity, our unit sat down and had some hard conversations. right? Because what we found is some people are coming into the military, and it's the first time they've met someone of a different ethnicity. And they didn't know how to handle that, right? So, okay, let's have a conversation about this now. And I'd say the gender piece is very similar in some ways. It's just culturally, how did you grow up, right? We create these norms. What does that mean? Like, I don't know that there's norms anymore. So I say, be who you want to be, right? Be who you are. So for the longest time, when I was a young officer in the military, I didn't dress like a girl. I wouldn't wear lipstick. I wouldn't wear makeup because that's what women in the military didn't do that, right? Because I got to look like a soldier all the time. I like dressing like a girl. I like my shoes and my purses. But I didn't appreciate that, right, as a young lady, because I thought people were going to judge me and say, oh, she only got there because she was cute, right? Because I did. I had a colonel make a comment about, so that stuck in my head. So don't let people tear you down. Don't be afraid to be you. And don't be afraid to have those hard conversations, because that's how we overcome bias. Because you give someone a different perspective. So, good discussions. Yeah. What we do? I'll tell you what I can. So it is a military organization. I have over 1,300 now, thank goodness. It is a joint force. So I have from across all the branches, including now the Space Force. So I now have guardians. Very, very excited about that. Marines, Coast Guard, airmen, soldiers, sailors. We're in DC, and we support the president. So I like to say the president can't be the president if he or she can't communicate. So right now, the president's male, right? He cannot be the president. Like, the Secret Service can keep him as safe as they want him. But if he can't talk to anyone, how is he being the president? How is he leading, right? How is he keeping everyone calm if it's a time of crisis, right? So that's my team's job, whatever that looks like. So any type of technology so the president communicate, we do that. And so we travel everywhere with the president and vice president, first lady, and we support their families and the senior staff, because we all know, right, the president doesn't do this alone. They have a senior staff that we support as well. So we have 3 missions. We have an enterprise services mission, so all things networks and phones and things of that nature, and radios. We have a customer service, so I have someone that, no kidding, side by side with the president, making sure he and the vice president, she has whatever she needs. And then we have a travel mission, so they're, my team has to go out far in advance to make sure that the president can communicate. So I fortunately get to, visit and see them and participate in all that fun stuff, and very proud of what they do. I have one of my civilians has been in the organization since Reagan was president. Yes, we have a wealth of experience in the organization. That's pretty cool. So when you see the president on TV, that's one of my team that's doing that. That podium, one of my team members built that. So yeah, very, very proud to be a part of this organization. Thank you. Anything else? None of the students have questions? No, we're shy. Didn't we talk about this? We're not allowed to be shy? All right, so hopefully, for some of you, you're like, oh, I know all this, which is great. Sometimes it's just a good reminder, right? And I thought, since I was coming to speak to the college students, and I know some of you are online, I'd just share some things again that I would have liked to have known when I was younger, to not be afraid about those failures, to not be afraid to try to overcome those challenges and those obstacles, to know that I'm gonna have to work hard at it, right? I gotta build up that resilience, gotta be perseverant, gotta build up that grit. So I'm proud to say I'm gritty now, and that you're not gonna get there alone. You gotta have that village of people. So know who your village people are, okay? I won't start doing YMCA. Coach. Yeah. No.
During your tenure and your experiences that males from
Um,
You find men support each other more often versus women kind of help?
So I always hate to make generalizations, to be honest, but I've seen it always. I actually had one female boss that was not at all supportive of me and told me I was too aggressive and I intimidated the other commanders. This is when I was a squadron commander, and I didn't tell you all this particular story, but like, here's a female colonel. I was a lieutenant colonel at the time, so one rank below, and she's telling me I'm too aggressive and I'm intimidating the other commanders, who were all men, by the way. This is not going to come out nice, but I'll tell you what I told her, because she had, prior to that, had given me some news that I thought was inappropriate, and I said, well, maybe they should grow some balls. So I like to say mine are just 12 inches higher, and they're bigger. So it depends is the answer, and so you got to know your audience, know who you're talking to, and don't be afraid to say something. So I tell my folks this, and they're like, oh, you're a colonel, of course you're not afraid to say something. Yeah, but even Captain Kaczor wasn't afraid to say things sometimes. Like if someone's like doing something inappropriate, or like, because again, it's probably a bias. They might not even realize they're doing it. And that's the worst part. It's when they don't realize they're doing it. I will tell you, it's very rare where I had someone do that, like judge me, I guess, based on my gender, or make that where they were like blatantly doing it, right? Like, and in this case, that female officer, like she had to have known that, like, what was she thinking? She was also very passive aggressive. So, and hopefully she never sees this video, and quite frankly, I don't care. But I've had some men too, right? Like assume, and even young officers like be surprised. Wow, I didn't know you could do that. Why wouldn't you think I could do that? But it's kind of honestly very rare, and it's oftentimes just having, like I said, having that conversation. I think when we see things like that, we're put off and we're afraid to say something, which guess what that does? That perpetuates that behavior. That's a problem we're seeing in the military, and I'm sure it's true of any organization, right? It's these things that we have allowed to occur, whatever type of discrimination it is. We didn't say anything, or we didn't speak up loud enough, or we kept getting hit down and we just finally just got tired, right? And it perpetuated that behavior of being okay, right? So you gotta say something. You gotta change it. Or guess what? That becomes normal and it becomes acceptable. And I think we see a lot of that with various things in our country right now because it's been allowed to be acceptable, So, yeah.
Joy,
Ma'am.
this is for the online students who
Yes.
are watching you, and it's, their assignment this week is to make a list of transferable skills they learned in their general education at Wesleyan that will help them in their career.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned several.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any others that you can add? Might give them some
Teamwork, teamwork, teamwork. Cannot emphasize that enough. Teamwork, right? There's very few jobs where you don't do something where you're working with someone else, right? Even in this virtual age where you're doing it online, you're probably not the only one working on that. And so part of the teamwork, though, is communicating. And my fear is with the way we communicate nowadays, where kids can't even put together sentences and don't know where to put the commas, but we don't know how to communicate. And across our generations, we communicate differently. So, back to the comment I made to Coach, you got to know your audience. Who are you communicating with? Because you can't effectively work it as a team if you don't have good communication, which may mean you need to communicate differently with different people on your team. I certainly do that. There are certain people I know, so I might blast out an email to maybe 10 people, here's what I need you guys to do, but I'll follow that up with a text with someone else and call maybe someone else because I know those two people, we need to communicate that way to get that task going. So you have to know your audience. You have to know your people, know how they work and how they like to communicate. But communication and teamwork, but I learned that here, right? So Mallory, I think we were talking about my little classic Apple II I had when I was here at Wesleyan. Loved my little classic II. And we would, it was a similar version to messaging, and I forgot what it was called back then, but we had a way to message each other, right? Because when you're in your dorms late at night, right, we didn't have cell phones. There was no cell phones, there was no texting, right? But we had other ways to communicate, and sending emails and things like that, right? So, Yeah, communication and teamwork, I think in life in general. Oh, by the way, and in marriage. Amen. Yep. No, thank you. Anything else? This is all good discussions. I could talk with you all day. I'm happy to see people. Sir. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, no, thank you. So, and I don't know if I emphasize this month, right? Your journey is constantly evolving, right? And you're reevaluating. So, you know, again, as I came into this job, coming out of that job where I was working ridiculous hours, commuting, was under a lot of stress. I was working at US Cyber Command. You've probably heard about it. Running a 24/7 ops mission. So, like, literally felt like I was working 24/7 ops. So when I moved to this job, I was like, I got to change something because I'm not going to last long if I continue at that pace. My dad died of a heart attack at 50, and you know, I ain't far from 50, and I didn't want that to happen. So what do I need to do to take care of me? So I have a little more control of my schedule now, and I said I got to take the time to do those things. And even now, I'm reevaluating some things because now I've changed positions. Now I'm the boss. Before I was the vice. So my plate looks a little different. My schedule looks a little different. This is my 4th or 5th speaking engagement today. And I still have to go. I have something else I got to do tonight, right? So it's not always easy, but I try to be consistent. What are the things that I know I need? So I know I need my fitness. In the military, we call it PT. I need my fitness because not only is that about my physical fitness, but mentally, that's my time. And so whether it's going for a quick run or doing a quick workout, even if it's just 15 minutes. This morning I only had time for 15 minutes, but those were my 15 minutes. And it's a great way to start my day. But you got to figure out what that looks like for you. Everybody's different. And what I'd share too is don't be afraid to adapt that, right? Like things are going to evolve in your life, and that may change, and that's okay too, right? But I had to start making time for me because it wasn't going to be sustainable, and then I wouldn't be there for my kids. Right? That was honestly the realization that I had, that something bad's going to happen if I don't start doing something. And you don't want it to get to the crisis point, right? But I also say don't let a crisis, always turn a crisis into an opportunity. So yeah, it took some focus, it took some change in perspective, and some dedication to that time. And then there's other things, right? I wanted to spend some more time reading and really developing myself. And I don't think I emphasize this enough. You should be constantly developing and creating yourself. I don't believe in this idea that we're searching for ourselves. Yourself's right here. So you're creating yourself, right? And so whatever that looks like in your development and growth and taking care of you and your wellness, you need to create yourself. And I'm doing that every day, right? Still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. Yeah, no, thank you for that question. Does anybody know what they're going to be when they grow up? I'm still waiting to grow up, so. Did you have a question, sir? Or you know what you're going to be when you grow up? Right, you don't know, right? So that's the other thing I want to tell you, the 20-something-year-olds out there, right? Like, some of us still don't know what we want to be when we grow up. Yes. Yeah, it's hard, right? Because, if you eat first, you're last. Well, okay, so we joke about that in our house. But I think there's an appreciation that, are you your best? So our motto in our unit is make your best better. Again, this gets back to don't compare. Are you your best? Okay, so my son's the second string quarterback. Okay, are you doing your best? Because that's all I can ask of you. And so it's perspective. And it's really hard, right? Because it's sports, mental, right? We're like, but I'm not number one. And trust me, I am probably one of the most competitive people you will meet, right? Like we are like in our house and right, I'm the military. That's how it is, right? That's how we are. I'm competitive. I get that. But now I try to change my perspective on things. Because winning isn't always being first place. Hopefully my kids are not watching because they'll be like, oh. Because it's not. It's your best. But that's really hard to have a conversation with a young person, right? And say, are you giving me your best? And so I think, you know, as a leader, I try to instill that. So, you know, as a coach, if you're instilling that expectation that you're winning, if you're giving me your best, you set that culture, right? In the military, we talk a lot about culture, so I try to set the culture of the team. Again, make your best better. I didn't say make their best better. Make your best. What is your best, right? You heard the saying, living your best life. It's your best life. What's right for you? So if you create that culture as a coach, then they will feel that way. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't, and I tell our kids this, like, yeah, it stinks. I want to be first all the time, too. I'm not most of the time. But I try to create that atmosphere where they know if you're doing your best and you're giving me your all and doing, and every day is not going to be your best day, I get that. But if you're trying hard and you create that culture and atmosphere, I think it's going to change their mindset about things too. And they won't look at second place as losing. I think that's most important. They need to still see that as winning, right? Holy smokes, if we don't think second place is still not awesome. So, yeah. It's hard though. Our perspective and our culture is not that way, right? Our perspective and our culture is if you're not first, you're last. So we have to shape that culture, and I know I certainly try to do that in my military units and with my folks, is create that culture that they're all valued and they all bring something different to the fight, right? We're having a big conversation now about diversity and inclusion. And I argue that diversity is so much more, like we can look around the room and there's diversity, right? By just what we see. Okay, that's one aspect of it, right? Certainly we got different genders, we have different ethnicities, we have different age groups in here, right? So there's diversity there. But I'd argue if we start peeling back and start talking about what your experiences are and where you've been and where you've lived and what you've done, we're going to see so much more diversity than what's on the outside. And appreciating that and talking about that and celebrating it, that's when you really start having this diverse group. But how do you now create a culture where people feel like they're included? That's much harder. Well, I don't want to keep you here all day. I will stand and talk with you all day and answer whatever questions you have. But again, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And thanks for all that were online and for the students that'll be watching. Just keep working at it. Thank you all again. Thank you, Dr. Fowler, so much. Appreciate it. Yes. All right. Thanks.